Welcome students. In today's class, we will be starting with the capsule 2 of 125 MCQ and LMR for the end semester examination. This capsule 2 will be comprising of the forces topic, in which we will be covering the resultant also as well as equilibrium also. This capsule 2 is the most important capsule for your end semester as well as your MCQ part of examination, because most of the things will be covered in this particular capsule. So before going towards the MCQ part, let us go last minute revision, that is LMR for this topic. So starting with, what do you mean by force? So basically force is defined as a external agency that changes the state of rest or a motion of a body, or it can also be defined as a push or a pull exerted by one body over another. So the characteristics of forces, it either make the body which is in rest in motion or the body which is in motion at rest. Hence, it is defined as external agency that changes the state of rest or motion of a body. What are the characteristics of a force, or how a force is fully defined? So, to define a force, the first thing required is the magnitude, that how much value of force is required. The second thing is the direction. Third point is the point of application. Point of application. And the fourth and last one is the line of action. So this all four things define a force. So force should have magnitude, it should have direction, it should be having a point of application as well as line of action. So this all four things define a force, or it is a requirement of a force. Next part, what are different kinds of force system? So force basically are divided into two parts. The first part is the coplanar and second one is non-coplanar. Coplanar is further divided into four parts. The first one is collinear force system. So collinear means the forces will be in one single line. Let us say there is a force F1 and there is force F2. Both of them are in the same line, hence it will be known as a collinear force. Second type of force system under coplanar is the concurrent force system. So concurrent force system means all the forces should pass through one single point. So let us say there are three forces F1, F2, and F3. You observe that all the three forces are passing through the single point, hence it will be termed as a concurrent force system. The third type of force system is a parallel force system, wherein you can see that all the forces should be either parallel to each other. So if you consider these forces, let us say F1, F2, and F3, you observe that all the three forces are parallel to each other. Hence, it will be a parallel coplanar force system. Parallel is further divided into two parts. First one is like and second one is unlike. Like parallel forces means when the direction of all the forces which are parallel to each other are same. So in this case, it is not same. Two of them are going downwards and one of them is going upward. Hence, this will be termed as the unlike parallel force system. But if the forces are like, all the forces are in the same direction, let us say this one F1, F2, and F3, then we will term it as a like parallel coplanar force system. Then coming to the second part of the force, then the fourth part is the general force system, in which the forces will be neither concurrent nor it will be parallel. So it's a general force system wherein every force can act anywhere on the body. Let us say there is body here, there is one force acting in this way, one force acting this way, one force acting, let us say, this way. So all the three forces are neither concurrent to each other nor they are parallel to each other. So this kind of forces will be termed as a general force system. Now the second classification of forces, the second part under force is non-coplanar force system. So under non-coplanar again there are three. The concurrent force system, which we have seen all the forces passing through one single point, but they are not in the same plane. Hence it will be a non-coplanar force system. Same goes for parallel and same goes for general. So if the forces are neither parallel nor concurrent, also not in the same plane, then it will be termed as a general non-coplanar force system. Let us forward. Let us move forward for the other topic, that is the parallelogram law of forces. The parallelogram law of force states that if two forces are acting simultaneously at a point are represented in magnitude and direction as adjacent sides of a parallelogram, then the resultant of the forces is given by the diagonal of the parallelogram passing through point of intersection. So the words which are written in the blue ink and which I have underlined are the most important words. So there should be two forces which should be acting simultaneously at a point and should be represented as magnitude and direction as the adjacent sides of parallelogram. So if this is the condition, then what we can say? Then we can say that the resultant of the forces is given by the diagonal of parallelogram passing through that point of intersection of the forces. So if I draw it diagrammatically, let us say there is a force F1, or let us say there is a force P, and let us say there is a force Q. Now, let us first see whether the conditions are satisfied or not. So, the condition is there should be two forces. So, yes, there are two forces P and Q. They should be acting simultaneously at a point. So, yes, they are acting at this particular point. Are represented as in magnitude and direction by adjacent sides of parallelogram. So, yes, they are representing the adjacent sides of the parallelogram. If I make this parallelogram here, so yes, there are two adjacent sides of the parallelogram. So, all the conditions are satisfied. Then what is said? It is said that the resultant of the forces is given by a diagonal of parallelogram passing through point of intersection. The resultant will be given by this diagonal of the parallelogram. So this will be resultant, and this diagonal should pass through point of intersection. Now the question arises: what will be the value of this resultant force? What will be the magnitude of this resultant force? So this value is given by the formula R is equal to square root of P square plus Q square plus 2PQ cos theta. That theta is the angle between the two forces. Again, I repeat that theta is the angle between these two forces. Now, as you have seen, force has magnitude as well as direction. So, magnitude is given by this relation. Now, how is the theta given or how is the direction given? So, theta formula is or alpha formula is, if I take this as alpha, the angle made by resultant with respect to this force P, I will write it is tan inverse of Q sin theta divided by P plus Q cos theta. So if you substitute the values, you will get the value of alpha with respect to P, or the value of resultant with respect to one force P. Let us go to the next part, which is a resolution of force. The most important part, resolution of a force. So first of all, what do you mean by resolution? Resolution means the splitting up of a force into x and y coordinates as per the given force system. So if it is a three coordinate system, that is x, y, z, we can split up into three coordinate system, that is fx, fy, and fz. But if I consider, let us say only this part, wherein there is only two planes, so xy plane. So then the resolution of force will be splitting up of a force into two different directions, that is x and y. That is known as the resolution of a force. Now, it is a simple technique to resolve the force. So it's very simple. Draw one line parallel to x, one line parallel to y for every force which you want to resolve. Let us say this angle is given to us as theta 1. That angle made by this force with exactly theta 1. So if this is theta 1, this angle will also be theta 1. Now, give the direction, look at the force. Force is going towards upside and towards right side. So this component will go towards right, this component will go upside. Now, the component which is adjacent to the angle, so this is component adjacent to the angle, so this will be always cos. So if this is force F1, so this will I will write F1 cos theta 1, and this I will write the remaining F1 sin theta 1. Let us solve some more. Let us do some more resolutions. Let us say this angle is theta 2 given with y-axis, and this is given as f2. Same logic I will apply. I will make one line parallel to x, one line parallel to y. Then angle theta 2 is given from y-axis. So here also I will make angle with respect to y-axis as theta 2. Then the directions. The force is going towards left side and top. So it will be top and left side. Then This component is adjacent to the angle, so this will be cos, this will be f2 cos theta 2, and this will be f2 sin theta. Now let us go for one more example. Let us get this is theta 3 and this is f3. So again I will draw one line parallel to x, one line parallel to y. Direction, force is going towards downside and left. So it will be left and down. Angle, this is theta 3, so I will make this a theta 3 corresponding angles. Now this component is adjacent to the angle, so this will become cos. So this will be f3 cos theta 3 and this will be f3 sin theta. Now last component, let us say this angle is theta, one line parallel to x, one line parallel to y. Direction, force is going towards downside and right, so right and down. Angle is with respect to y-axis. Here also I will make with respect to y-axis as theta 4, and let us say force is f4. Now this component is adjacent to the angle, so this will become cos component. So this is f4 cos theta 4 and this will be f4 sin theta 4. So you can observe that what I have done, I have splitted up the force into x and y direction. That is mean by resolution of force. The splitting of the component in various directions is known as the resolution of force. Yes, in resolution what we do, we split the components into various axis systems. In composition what we do, we combine all the forces or all the components of the forces and combine into one single force. That is known as a composition. So composition is combining all the forces, resolution is splitting up all the forces. So let us go to the next topic, which is the resultant of concurrent force system. So as we have seen, there are three different types of force system: concurrent, collinear, concurrent, parallel, and general. So let us start with the resultant of concurrent force system. So the resultant, the magnitude of the resultant is given by the relation R is equal to square root of summation fx square plus summation of fy square. Where summation of fx means add all the forces in x direction, summation of fy means add all the forces in y direction. So as now we have got the magnitude, force has magnitude as well as direction. So the direction of the resultant is given by theta is equal to tan inverse of summation fy by summation of fx, and this is in modulus. Next is a sign convention, which you all know, that all the forces going towards right side will be considered positive, while the forces going towards left will be considered as negative. All the forces going towards upside will be positive in y direction, while the forces going towards downside will be considered negative. So if it is a resultant of concurrent force system, we need to find only two things. The first thing is the resultant magnitude, which is given by fx and fy square under root, and the resultant direction, which is given by tan inverse of fy by fx. That's it. Moving forward, so this was all about how to find a resultant of a given force system or a concurrent force system. Now another case wherein the resultant will be given to you and you will be required to find out the unknown force. So for that cases, the first step, or if let us say in the question it is given, find the force such that the resultant is 0. So if this condition is given, resultant is 0, we will use that summation of fx is equal to 0 and summation of fy is also equal to 0, as resultant is 0. Suppose in the question is given that find the fourth force or find the unknown force such that R is horizontal, that is in x direction. So if R is in horizontal, I can write summation of fx is equal to R as given the condition, and I will write summation of fy is equal to 0. Similarly, if R is vertical, I will use the condition summation of fy will be is equal to R and summation of fx will be equal to 0. One thing which is missing here is if R is inclined at some angle. So let us say it's given that there is a resultant of a force system which is inclined at some angle theta with respect to x. So what I will write in this case, the condition will become like this, that Rx will be equal to summation of fx, or I can write or summation of fx will be equal to Rx, which is component of resultant in x direction, and summation of fy will be component of resultant in y direction. So this are the conditions of the different resultant So that is the note written. The x components of the resultant will be equal to the sum of x component of the all forces. This I have explained to you here that the resultant, the x component of the resultant will be equal to sum of all forces in x direction. Similarly, we have y component force. What do you mean by a movement of a force? So basically, movement is the turning effect of a body about a given point and is known as movement of a force. So the turning effect of a body about a given point is known as the movement of a force. Mathematically, if I write, it will be movement about a point is equal to force multiplied by perpendicular distance of the force from that point. So this is the important word, that it should be a perpendicular distance. So in simple language, what I can tell you, that if the force is in horizontal direction, you take the distance in vertical direction. This is the distance. And if the force is in vertical direction, you take the horizontal distance about a point. That means by the word perpendicular distance of the force. The movement is divided into two parts, or there are classified into two parts. First, the clockwise movement. So when a body tends to rotate in clockwise direction due to application of a force, then the movement is considered as clockwise movement. Clockwise movement are considered negative. So there is a difference of opinion here, that someone takes clockwise movement as positive. So you can take positive also, you can take negative also. So if you take clockwise movement as negative, anti-clockwise will be positive. So you can see it is positive written here. So when I take clockwise negative, anti-clockwise will be positive. And if I take clockwise as positive, then anti-clockwise will become negative. That's only the difference. Next topic is a couple. What do you mean by a couple? So couple is a pair of equal and opposite forces separated by some distance is called as a couple. So if I draw it diagrammatically, let us say there is a body here and there is one force of 10 Newton acting here going downwards, and there is one 10 Newton force going upwards, and they are separated by a distance, let us say 1 meter. So if there are two equal and opposite separated by some distance, then it is called as a couple. So this system will be known as a couple system. And again, similarly, they are divided into two parts, clockwise couple. So a couple whose tendency is to rotate the body in clockwise direction is known as a clockwise couple. Clockwise couple are considered negative. The first characteristic is the algebraic sum of forces forming a couple is 0. So from the diagram you can see one force going downward 10, one force going upward 10. So answer will be 0. So algebraic sum of forces will be 0. Next point, a couple can't be balanced by a single force, but can be balanced by a couple of opposite ends. So again, if I refer this figure, Newton forces will be tending to move the body in anti-clockwise direction. So if I want to balance it, I have to apply two opposite force to this and this. That means a couple of opposite ends to take it balanced. So that's why it is written, it is not balanced by a single force, but can be balanced by a couple of an opposite ends. Third point, any number of coplanar couples can be replaced by a single couple of magnitude equal to algebraic sum of all the couples. So let us say there is a body and there are two or three couples acting on a body. Let us say this is anti-clockwise couple of 20. This is a clockwise couple of 10, and this is a anti-clockwise couple of 30. So what this property says, that all these three couples can be combined and replaced by a single couple. So this is anti-clockwise 20, this is anti-clockwise 30. So total anti-clockwise is 50, clockwise is 10. So total resultant becomes anti-clockwise 40. So this is equivalent to this. That's the point number 3. Fourth point. A couple being a free vector can be moved anywhere on the body, having the same effect. So here you can see, I have made the couple here at this point. There was couple acting here, there was couple acting here, there was couple acting at this point. but I have made the couple acting at this point, and this couple is not necessarily being shown at this point. It can be shown anywhere of the body because it is a free vector. So you can make it anywhere on the body. So these are the properties of a couple or a characteristics of couple. Let us go to the next part, which is Varignon's theorem. Varignon's theorem states that the sum of moments of all the forces about a point is equal to moment of resultant force about the same point. So if I write it mathematically, I can write summation of moment of all forces about a point. Let us say I am taking point A should be equal to moment of resultant about same point, that is A. That is nothing but the Varignon's theorem. Now, why and where Varignon's theorem is used? So Varignon's theorem is used to find out location or distance or a position of the resultant force. So when you want to find out where the resultant actually lies, what is the location of the resultant force, we use Varignon's theorem to find out location, distance, and position of the resultant force. Now, this Varignon's theorem is applicable only for parallel force system and general force system in both coplanar and non-coplanar forces. So, Varignon's theorem applicable for parallel, general force system in both coplanar and non-coplanar force system, and is used to find out what location or the position or the distance of the resultant force. Let us go to the next topic, which says resultant of a parallel force system. So earlier we have seen what is the resultant of concurrent force system. Now we are telling what is the resultant of parallel force system. For a parallel force system, the magnitude of the resultant is given by the relation. So the question is same. The formula is same. R is equal to square root of summation fx square plus n of fy square. But here what happens? Let us say this is a parallel force system wherein all the forces are parallel to each other. Equal to what I will get? I will get R is equal to summation of fy. So what you need to do is just add all these forces in y direction, that will become your resultant. On the similar lines, if let us say the parallel forces are like this, all the forces are along x direction, then I will write directly that R is equal to summation of fx. That is, add all the forces in x direction and it will give you the resultant value. Regarding theta we all know, because they are parallel force system, the resultant will also be along y direction, so theta will be 90 degrees. There also the resultant will be along x, so with the body the angle made will be 90 degrees. So no need to find the angle in case of parallel force system. Then where it is located, so location or position or distance will be found out using Varignon's theorem, which we have just seen in the previous slide. Next is resultant of general force system. So we have the magnitude given by R is equal to fx square by fy square, same. The direction of resultant is given by tan theta. Theta is tan inverse of fy by fx. And for location we will use Varignon's theorem, which says that summation of moment of all forces about point A is equal to moment of resultant about same point, that is A. So this is the entire summary of the force system. So if it is a concurrent force system, we find out only R and theta. If it is parallel force system, we need to find out R and X, where X is the distance of the location or the location of the resultant force. And in general force system, you have to find all the three things, that is R, theta, as well as X. Different types of force acting on a body. So the first type of force acting on the body is the applied force, which is actually applied on the body. The second one is non-applied force. Under non-applied force, there are two categories, that is self-weight and reactions. So in any body, there are three different kind of forces. The first one is the applied force, which is directly applied on the body, and there are some non-applied forces which are self-weight and reaction. So self-weight act vertically downwards, always act vertically downwards, and it will be acting at the center of the body. So self-weight will be always acting towards at the center of the body and downwards. Regarding reactions will always be perpendicular to surface. Reaction will be always perpendicular to surface, and from surface to body. That's the important point because this matters the direction of the force. So again, I repeat, self-weight will always be acting vertically downwards and at the center of the body, whereas reactions will be always perpendicular to the surface and the direction will be from surface to the body. The next part is the free body diagram. Now, what do you mean the free body diagram? When we draw a diagram of a body, isolating it from all the supports, then it is known as a free body diagram. So, in free body diagram, what we draw? First, we draw the applied forces, which are applied on the body. Then, second, we draw the self weight. Third, we see about the reactions from surfaces. Reactions from surface or supports. Then we check for loadings. If it is a UDL or a UBL or a trapezoidal load, that has to be converted into a point load. And finally, we see about the friction force. So this all things should come under a free body diagram. So let us see some examples of a free body diagram. Let us say there is a body here of weight W kept on this surface having coefficient of friction mu, and it is, let us say, applied by force P. So what will be the free body diagram for this? If I draw the free body diagram for this, it will be like this. There is a body. First we will show the applied force. So this is the applied force. Then we will show self weight. So self weight always act vertically downwards. So this will be vertically downwards W. Then reaction from surfaces. So here there is a surface on which it was kept. So this surface will exert reaction, and we know that the reactions will always be perpendicular to surface and from surface to the body. So it will be like this. So let us say this is normal reaction. Then we have to check for loading. So there is no loading here. Then we have to check for friction force. So as the applied force is towards right direction, the friction force will be towards left side with a value of mu into n. So this completes the free body diagram of this particular body. Let us take one more example. Let us say there is a ladder which is resting along a wall and a ground, and the coefficient of friction, let us say here it is mu, and here it is a smooth surface. Now we have to draw the free body diagram of this ladder AB. So what I will do, I will first make it free from surrounding. So this is free from surrounding A and B. Then first we have to show the applied forces. So let me show that there is a man standing on this ladder. So if there is a man standing on this ladder, it is applying its self weight. The man's self weight will be the applied force on this particular body. So I will make here the weight of man. This is the applied force. Then self weight of this ladder, and it will acting exactly at the center and vertically downwards. So this is self weight. Then we have reaction from surfaces. So at point A, the surface is horizontal, so reaction will be, at point A the surface is vertical, so reaction will be horizontal, and it will be from surface to the body, so the reaction will be like. So let me write it as HA. Similarly, at point B, there is a horizontal support. So if it is a horizontal support, reaction will be vertical and from surface to the body. So it will be like this, and I will name it as RB. Next is loading. So there is no loading here. Then friction force. Friction force will always act opposite to direction of motion. So if this ladder slips by chance, so this point B will move towards right side. So if B moves towards right side, the friction force will go towards left. So I will show the friction force here, and the value will be mu multiplied by normal reaction, that is RB. Now, if point B moves towards right, point A will move towards downside. But as it is given that the surface is smooth, there will be no friction force acting here. So this completes the free body diagram for this particular case. Now let us take one more example. A block kept on inclined surface. A block of W kept at an inclined surface, and let us say it is pulled by a string with the block which is here. Angle theta. So I want to draw a three-point diagram of this block. So I will make this block first separate. So this is separated. First, I will show the applied forces. So the tension in the string or cable are considered as the applied force. So I will show it, and these forces are always shown away from the body. So I will show it away from the body and T. So that comes under applied force. Then there is a self-weight. Self-weight always act vertically downwards. So this will be W. Then reaction from contact surface. This W has a contact surface like this. So reaction will be perpendicular, so it will be like this. And from surface to the body, so direction will be towards that. So I will make here the force same direction. So this is the normal reaction of the surface. Then loading, there is no loading here. Then the frictional force. So as coefficient of friction is not given here for the surface, I will assume to be a smooth. I will not show the friction forces. So this completes the free body diagram of a block W kept on a inclined surface. But now what happens here? If I want to resolve it by regular that this is x, this is y, we consider this as x, this inclined as x, as this inclined as y. So now what happens? This t is now along x-axis and this n is along y-axis. So no need to resolve this. So the only resolution is for this w. So what we do? Draw one line parallel to x, one line parallel to y. So the tendency will always be towards downside because this weight w always be acting towards gravity. Now this angle theta, which is made by the angle of plane, will be made by the vertical component. So this will be theta. And if this is theta, we know that this will be w cos theta and this will be w sin theta. So hope you have now understood how to draw the free body diagram of various forces. Let us move further. So we have now law of transmissibility. The law of transmissibility states that the rest or a motion of a body remains unchanged when a force acting on a body is replaced by another force of same magnitude and direction anywhere on the body along its line of action. Let us understand what does that mean. So let us say there is a body here and there is a force F1 acting on this particular point. Now, the transmissibility said that this force can be transferred on the body along its line of action. So this is line of action of the force. So this force can be transferred from this point anywhere along this line, but with the same magnitude and direction, then the effect of the body will remain changed, or the rest or the motion of the body will remain unchanged. You can take any force, let us say one force is, let us say F2 here. So this can be replaced by another force along the line of action with same magnitude direction here. So this is F. The effect will remain same. This is known as law of transmissibility. Next part, Lami's theorem. Now what is Lami's theorem? Lami's theorem says that if three coplanar, this is the condition. There should be three forces. This is the first condition. Second condition, it should be coplanar. Should be acting at a point simultaneously. This is the third condition. So if there are three forces, they are coplanar in nature and they are acting at a point simultaneously and are in equilibrium. This is the fourth condition. Then the ratio of the force to the sine of angle between other two forces remains. Now what does it mean? Let us say there is a point here and at this point there are three forces acting. F1, let us say this is F2 and this is F3. So there are three forces acting simultaneously at a point and are in equilibrium then. And let me say that this angle is theta 1, this angle is theta 2 and this angle is theta 3. So as per Lami's theorem, what I can write F1 divided by. So if I am taking force F1 plus angle between other two forces, which is theta 1. So I will write F1 upon sine of angle between other two forces, that is theta 1, will be equal to F2 upon sine of theta 3 will be equal to F3 upon sine of theta. This is nothing but the Lami's theorem. Next part, types of these. what are the different types of beams we can consider? So the first one is the simply supported beam. So here you can see it's a simply supported beam. This beam is there. This is the beam, and it is supported only at the ends. Here there is a support, and here there is a support. So if the beam is supported only at the ends, then it will be known as a simply supported beam. So here it is written: beams supported at ends only are known as simply supported beams. Next part is a fixed beam. So fixed beam, as you can see, it is fixed at this particular end also, and it is fixed on the other end also. So fixed beams are fixed at both the ends, are restricted to move in all directions. They cannot move in any of the direction because they are fixed in nature. So if I draw a line diagram for this, simply supported beam is shown like this. A beam is there and it is simply supported. So this is a line diagram for simply supported beam. And if I draw line diagram for fixed beam, it will be like this. So it is a fixed support, so it will be denoted by this at this point, and also it is fixed on this side, so it will be denoted like this on this side also. Next is overhanging beam. What do you mean by overhanging beam? So overhanging beam are those whose supports are not at the end. So you can see this beam or this platform is hanging from this support. There is no support here, it is hanging in air. Hence it is known as overhanging beam. Here also you can see there is a support to this particular structure only at this particular end. Here it is free, there is no structure here. So only support at one end and there is no support at this end, and it will be known as a overhanging beam. So here it is written beam is extended beyond the support at one end. So that will be known as a overhanging beam. So if I draw it diagrammatically, it will be like this. There is support here at one end and there is support anywhere in between, and the beam is extended toward after the support. Next is double overhanging beam. It's a similar concept. Here you can see that there are supports in the middle and the beam is hanging towards this side also and beam is hanging towards this side also. So this kind of beams are known as overhanging beam. So if I draw it diagrammatically, it will be like this. The beam is there and the support is only at the middle or in between the span, not at the ends. This type of known as overhanging beam or double overhanging beam. Next is the cantilever beam. So cantilever beam means a beam which is fixed at one end and free at other end, or applied load at other end. So here you can see there is a beam here. It is fixed at one end, it is fixed here, but it is free at this point. So fixed beams fixed at one end and free at another end is known as the cantilever. So if I draw it diagrammatically, it will be like this. It is fixed at one end, but it is free at other end. There is no support at this end. That is known as cantilever beam. So the previous example which we have seen of like this one, this is also an example of a cantilever beam. There is only support at this end and there is free on this end. Then next part is continuous beam. Continuous beam means, again if you observe the figure, there is a huge beam of length L and it is supported by various supports at intervals, regular intervals. So this type of beams are known as continuous beams. So it is said that if there is more than one support on the beam is known as the continuous beam. Let us say there is a beam here and I am making 4 to 5 supports or more than 2 supports on this. So that type of beam will be known as continuous beams. Next part is types of loading. So the first type of loading is a concentrated or a point load. So concentrated or point load means if there is a body here and let us say there is a force acting on this particular point of 20 Newton. And let us say there is a one force which is inclined acting at this particular point of 30 Newton. So this kind of forces are known as concentrated or point load acting at one particular point. Next is uniformly distributed load or a UDL. So this is the diagram for a UDL. Just ignore this part, the support part. We'll come to it later. So just there is a beam and it is uniformly distributed. Uniformly distributed means the force or loading at every point on the beam is same. Now, if I want to convert if I want to convert this loading of intensity W Newton per meter into a single point load, what I will do? The conversion will be like this. Let us say this is point A and this is point P. So the value of point load will be intensity, that is W, multiplied by the length which is acting. So it will be L. Let us say if the length is L, so the value of force will become W into L, and it will be acting exactly at the center of the beam, that is L by 2 from both ends. So what I have done, I have converted this uniformly distributed load into a point load. Next type of loading is UVL, that is uniformly varying load. In this, you can observe the load goes on varying from this end, that is 0, to maximum at this particular end, let us say, which is W Newton per meter. So the load goes on varying from one end to another end. This type of load is known as uniformly varying load. Now, if I want to convert this load into a point load, so what I will do, I will make a beam, let us say it is of AB. The conversion of point load for this triangular load is half multiplied by base, which is L, multiplied by the height of this intensity, that is W. So the value will be half into L into W, acting at 1/3 of the base. So it will be 1/3 of the base from the side making right angle triangle. So from B it will be 1/3. If you want it from A, it will be 2/3 of L. Then uniformly varying load can also be of another nature, where it will be maximum at this end and it will be free at this end. Again same. If I want to convert it into point load, let us say A, this is B. Again the conversion will be same. The load will be, value will be half into intensity into length, where this W is intensity at this point, and it will be acting at a distance now L by 3 from this point, because this is the side which is making right angle triangle, and this will be 2L by. Next point, the other type of load is known as the trapezoidal load. So now you can see that a trapezoidal load is a mixture of UDL and UVL. If I draw a line here, the part which is below this line is nothing but the uniformly distributed load, and the loading above this line is the UVL. So it can be told as a mixture of UDL plus UVL. Now how to convert this? Simple logic. Let us say this is BC. If I consider a UDL, for UDL we know that if intensity here at this particular point is W1, so what I will write? The loading will be, the value of loading will be W1 multiplied by L, and it will be acting exactly at L by 2, half, for a UDL. Now for a UDL, let us say this intensity is given to us as W2. So what this height will become? This height will become W2 minus W1, and this is 0 part. So if I convert this into a point load, it will be somewhere here with a value of half into base is L, and height is, we just now found that it is W2 minus W1. So we need height only of the triangle, not the complete height. So the height of triangle is W2 minus W1. And it will be acting 1/3 from the base. 1/3 of the base, so it will be L by 3 from the side making right angle triangle. So from point C it will be at a distance of L by 3. So trapezoidal loading will be converted into 2 points load. One will be for UDL and one will be for UVL. Next part is the types of supports and its equivalent reactions. So the first type of support is a smooth surface support. Now what is smooth surface support? We have some examples here. So let us say there is a cylinder which is rotating or kept on the surface. So this surface is providing the support. So that is known as a smooth surface support. So what is the reaction? We have just now seen that if this is a surface which is horizontal, the reaction will be vertical and it will be from surface to the body. So direction will be like this. I will write down here, it is RA. And because this is smooth surface, that means there is no friction on this particular surface. There will be no friction force coming into picture. Here also there is a block M, block of mass M kept on this surface. So again same reaction will come. Reaction will be, as surface is horizontal, the reaction will be vertical and it will be from surface to the body. The direction will be like this. In this case, if you can observe here, the surface is this much inclined. So if surface is inclined, reaction should be perpendicular. So I have made here the reaction perpendicular to the surface and from surface to the bottom. Next type of support is a cable or a rope or a tie support. So let me give an example. Let us say there is a cable here and this ball is supported by a cable at the center. So now there is a support to the ball of the cylinder with this cable. So in these cases, what we do, we show this support or a cable support as a tension in the cable going away from the ball. Which we have also seen in the previous cases. So tension or the rope or the force in the rope, cable or a support or a tie support can be shown as outward force in tension going away from the body. Next force is a roller support. Okay, next support is a roller support. So roller support means like this. So you can see the man on the chair can roll anywhere on the ground, but he cannot move in vertical direction. He cannot move in vertical direction. Hence, for a roller, if I draw it a line diagram, rollers are shown like this, either like this or it will be like this. So if you see the roller kind structure in any of them, it will be a roller support. So if I want to convert this supports into reactions, so what I will do? So this support, as you know, as the support is horizontal, reaction will be vertical. There will be one vertical reaction at A and there will be one reaction at B. Now, why vertical reaction? Because the movement is restricted in y direction for this particular case. Now, let us say there is a beam like this and roller is applied like this. So now what happens? This beam can move anywhere in this direction because of roller support. So the direction in which it cannot move is horizontal, so the reaction will be horizontal. So simply remember, wherever the direction of motion is restricted at that particular direction, the reaction will come and it will be from surface to the body. Now similarly, we have the second support, another type of support, that is hinge support. Now for hinge support, you can see an example of a door. It can rotate about this fixed point, but it cannot move in X and Y. So if there is a hinge is denoted by like this, a triangle, or it is shown like this without any tire-like structure in between. So if this need to be supported by a reaction, what we will do? As it is restricted in X and Y both, there will be two reactions at the hinge point. There will be HA and VA, and here also there will be HA and VA. Now this directions which I am making is arbitrary. You can make any direction. While calculation, if you get negative, that means your assumption was wrong. Next type of support is a fixed support. Now you can see that this projectile is fixed in the wall or the ceiling. It cannot move either in X nor in Y, nor it cannot rotate about any point. So if I make the line diagram for this, so this is a projector is fixed at both the ends. So if it is fixed at both the ends, so fixed support will be replaced by three reactions: horizontal, vertical, as well as the movement, because it cannot move also in any direction. Similarly, here also it is fixed support, so there will be three reactions replaced by on the fixed. Next is how to steps to solve problems on support reaction. The first step will be to draw the given point load as it is. Second step will be resolve all the inclined forces, which we have seen how to resolve a force. Third step will be convert loading into reactions, that is convert UDL, UBL or any other loading into reactions. Then convert supports into reactions. If it is a hinge support, roller support, fixed support, convert it into appropriate reactions. Then finally apply conditions of equilibrium and get the required values. And conditions of equilibrium are summation of Fx0, summation of Fy0, and summation of moment about any point should be 0. So with this, I have completed regarding the last minute revision of the topic forces and equilibrium. That means resultant and equilibrium of the coplanar forces system. So now we start with the MCQ part. So this, again I repeat, this is the most important module which you need to cover for your exams.